time I'm here. It's so fun to visit Alaska's little sister state. It's so cozy in Texas. Love it. I do love everything about Texas. You know, the big sky and your big barbecue, all that meat you consume. I'm with you there. Your cowboy grit and independent spirit, your common sense. Everything is big and beautiful in Texas, including the heart of the proud people who live here. This morning I was able to speak with a lot of oil and gas industry personnel there in Houston at a big conference that featured some speakers who will be kind of helping to incentivize, spurring on more development with some changes in the industry. And as I was speaking there, I told the audience that, you know, again, great to be back in Texas. And the last time, you know, you never know what might happen at one of these Texas speeches of mine, because the last time I keynoted a big oil and gas conference was in Dallas some years ago. And in the middle of my keynote speech, I went into labor. And Governor Perry had introduced me, and I'm at the podium doing my speech. My husband Todd, he's standing in the back at the exit because he and I, you know, by your fifth child, you know what's coming. And I had told him before the speech, I'm like, oh, I know what's coming. So he's in the back and he's motioning me, okay, wrap it up. You know, he's telling me to wrap it up all the time, whether I'm in labor or not, you know. Okay, that's enough, Sarah, let's go, let's go. So he's in the back and Governor Perry's introduced me. I give my speech and I do wrap it up a little bit early. I hand the mic back to Governor Perry, and instead of going back with the panel, I walk off the stage and I'm kind of hustling down to the exit. And Governor Perry, he makes some sarcastic little crack about, hey, don't tell me you're going off to have that baby right now, are you? Ha ha. And I said, I am. And hopped on an airplane, and in just a matter of hours that morning, I had our son, Trig. And the baby was almost born here in Texas, but Todd said he's a commercial fisherman in addition to working in oil, and he says, can't have a fish picker born in Texas, got to make it home to Alaska. So we made it home to Alaska, but things are always kind of exciting every time we get to come to Texas. And it's good to be here today. It is Lincoln's birthday, President Reagan's birthday last week, President Washington's birthday in a few days. Thinking, you know, there are a lot of good presidents born in this month. Yes. And we'll see who else's birthday is in. Thank you. You said happy birthday to me yesterday. Yeah. That's all right. You caught that. Very good. So thank you. Hey, another thing about Texas, though, a connection that I feel so proud of. I had spent 2 summers as a high school student in these little towns, Beeville and George West, in between Corpus Christi and Victoria on the other side of the state, running for a track team and at girls basketball camps and programs there. And there were 6 of us from Alaska who got to spend our summers in Texas, and that really allowed me this great appreciation for Texas and the heart here, and the the athleticism that you guys are into competition, you're into sports. And I say all the time that because I loved basketball at the time, still do, that everything I ever needed to know I learned on the basketball court, and it was a Texas basketball court. And I appreciate your hospitality all those years ago, and I appreciate your hospitality today. So wonderful to be back, and honored really to be at this institute that is so dedicated to inspiring the next generation of leaders. This mission is so crucial because today our country is craving real leadership. Now when we go do our little Q&A here, we will talk more specifically, I think, about women in leadership, but I'm going to talk about leadership in general here during my remarks before we get to the Q&A, and I'm anxious for that because I know that we get to answer audience questions, which is always exciting. You never know who's in the audience who get to put me on the spot. To me, it's a challenge, and I love the challenge. But very crucial, our country is suffering a dire lack of good leadership. It's a paramount topic approaching the next presidential election especially, isn't it? Because this administration, soon, it will be over, and I know, I'm not to get too partisan, but it's in my blood, so Obama era is coming to an end, and it can't come soon enough. Because we're facing so many challenges. The administration is leaving us with a lot of challenges as they wrap it up in the next 2 years. Remember in 2008, the candidate who ended up winning, and I was on the other ticket. We got second out of 2. Sorry. But the other ticket, the candidate had promised us a fundamental transformation of America, and now we know what he meant. And it's not good, and people are craving a fundamental restoration of all that is good and free and safe about America. And that's what we need to look for in the next election. We need real leadership. There's heightened distrust right now in government. That's a shame. And a once watchdog media. Unfortunately, much of that distrust is justified, but we don't just whine about it and wring our hands and say, oh, woe are we do something about it. We take action. We hear often, man, we got to pray for this nation, and we do. But God doesn't drive parked cars. He expects us to get up and take action, I am sure. If we are believing that dissatisfaction in where our country is going is justified, and certainly there is something that we can do about it. Our national debt, for instance, is a debilitating $18 trillion, and there's no end in sight because it seems like our leaders today are just kicking the can down the road. We don't even hear much discussion about this debt anymore. Dangerous consequences, though, are in store in terms of our solvency, our sovereignty, if we don't address it. Middle-class incomes having flatlined. The percentage of us actually working today, it is, the slowest and the lowest in decades. And people are really simply just dropping out of the workforce because of a lack of jobs and frustration in finding the scarce jobs. Many college grads, and I know that there are young people here today, a lot of college grads, they are getting out of school so far in debt and without a lot of the skills that are needed to even make it in this job market. And then, of course, on the national security front, Islamic terrorists who are on the march. We were told by the White House, we got Al-Qaeda on the run. I'm thinking, yeah, running right towards us, wrong direction. We're facing huge threats there, national security, because there is unspeakable evil going on with these bad actors. They are savages. They are murdering children. They are beheading children. And I would like to see America's exceptionalism, our belief in peace through strength again, be exercised as we face this terrorist threat and make sure that they're stopped over there so they don't come over here. And I so appreciate the United States military for what it is that they're willing to do for our safety and our freedom. As a matter of fact, I say all the time, if you love your freedom, you thank a vet. And I would like to take the time to honor our vets here today, those of you who have served or are serving today. If you would honor us by standing up, we're going to salute you, and we thank you from the bottom of our heart, our military. Being introduced with that little part of the introduction being a military mom. When my son decided to enlist, he was barely 18, and he put some aspirations aside. He wanted to be the next Wayne Gretzky, and there we were on a path towards some big hockey. And it was in 2008 on September 11th that he enlisted and didn't really consult with us because he knew that Todd and I, we would support his decision, but it still kind of surprised us. But he enlisted, and when people today say, oh my goodness, Sarah Palin, you get clobbered in the media so often and they say these things about you, and does it hurt? Does it make you want to just stop and maybe crawl under a rock and stay there? I say no, because I know that other people are taking the real shots in life, like our military personnel overseas, especially in war, so they're the ones who feel those shots. And I also say, by the way, I don't care willing to fight for our freedom and our security, because it is from Syria to Iraq and Libya and Yemen to the streets of Paris that we are seeing that evil made manifest. And America can do something about it, and we will. Russia too. Russia bullying its neighbors. And China, what China's doing right now, aggressively, yet kind of quietly, building an enormous and modernized military force, while we, with our military, kind of going backwards. And it's no fault of our military personnel. It is others who are making decisions for top brass and military. We're kind of going backwards. We're slashing budgets for national defense and for the tools that our military needs. We're letting military superiority erode in this tinderbox of a world today, and it makes no sense. There is a leadership vacuum in the world right now. If America doesn't step back into that as the exceptional nation that can lead to a more peaceful world, well, that vacuum is going to be filled, as we're seeing now, by those very shady, evil characters. So again, leadership being so important in this nation, so that we stand up, grasp, embrace again that exceptionalism, and lead towards a safer and more secure, more peaceful world. We also have, of course, domestically again, challenges with our porous borders, where we have basically a neon light that's flashing right now over the borders saying, foreign nationals, come on in and compete with Americans for the scarce jobs and resources that we have. And, by the way, after your first action, illegal immigrants, your first action breaking the law will reward you for it. That's backwards. That makes no sense, and it's disrespectful to those who are legal immigrants and have worked so hard to build this nation. So we have a problem there with the porous borders, and there's something we can do about that too. We didn't need that fundamental transformation of America, and I think more and more Americans are realizing that. We need that fundamental restoration, and we need to be able to teach and show and inspire our young people, again, what the American dream is all about, and provide opportunities, make sacrifices today so our children and their children can live that American dream. And we do it with leadership. We do it with and by you. Because ultimately, it is the people, especially in a republic, a democracy within a republic, it is the people who are to lead. We can't all complain too much about what's going on in our government, because we get what we tolerate. And if enough of us rise up and say, no, enough is enough, and government is to work for us. We're not to work for government. It's to be on our side, not in our way. If enough of us rise up and say, enough is enough, no more of that. We can take back our country. We don't have to put up with a government that we don't believe in what it is that they're doing, because we see clearly the path that they're putting us on. We don't have to put up with that. So we need that real leadership beginning with you. Bob had asked me an interesting question. He said, with leadership, what are the pros and cons of an all-or-nothing mentality for a political leader, male or female? He says, no marriage works that way. Common ground makes things work, right? And I said, yes, common ground does. And successful, productive compromise that leads to that common ground you're looking for, it doesn't mean retreat. My dad raised my siblings and I to always know, during tough times especially, you don't retreat. You reload, but you don't retreat. You come back. Going from there. And this institute's namesake, John Ben Shepherd, he was brilliant, saying, you can try so hard to stay away from the pro or the con that you become blind to the right or the wrong. We need leaders who won't let the American way of life die of cold feet because they were afraid to get into hot water. Now, to tackle the big problems that I listed, and there are more, you can't be afraid of that hot water, and you, as the astute and active patriotic citizens of America, can't be afraid to stir it up too. In fact, you can't be afraid of making waves in your community, even if you see things that you don't believe are the right things being done for a free community within a free nation. Well, if you're not making waves, then you're not kicking hard enough. And as a commercial fisherman myself, you know, I look at the fish that are swimming around and under my net, and they're not getting caught. And I notice the patterns. I notice that only dead fish go with the flow. Well, if we don't want to be considered dead fish, we have to work really hard, kind of swimming upstream. And personally, you know, I do that, putting up with some of the stuff that the media does, but I'm not a dead fish, so I'm not going to just go with the flow. And we can't be taken for a ride by our opponents, by those who, again, we believe are not doing the right thing for a free country. It does not mean strategically backing away and chickening out in terms of a healthy debate and tough competition and a good battle in the arena of ideas. It means strategically achieving a goal for the common good. For some, compromise, though, especially in Congress, it means unilaterally disarming in the face of opposition to a solution. And I get real frustrated when I see people in my own party doing that when they are now in the majority. And now they are in a position to actually affect positive change. And yet, too often, those leaders in my own party are kind of backing away, thinking that that sort of compromise will please the people who hired them to get to Washington, D.C. and turn things around and get our country back on the right track. That's not compromise, that is surrender. And it's not how you win for the people that you are to serve. And I know this. I got into politics to achieve positive solutions. And the way to fix a city, a state, a nation's intractable problems is with bipartisan support. And I could govern first my city and then the state of Alaska in that manner only because I knew that the people were there with me, because the people got the information that they needed in order to understand what was going on. When you have the people with you, you can win for them. The politicians, the other politicians, they will follow when they see that one leader has the people with them. You have to understand and respect that really it is the people who lead in a republic. And the best leaders are those who get to hear from the people when they're presented a problem, a challenge, when the people are able to say at the end of the day after solving that problem, instead of the leader doing it, the people are able to say, we did it ourselves. And that is a sign of true leadership when someone can bring them along and let them know that they are the empowered ones in a republic. Voters sent me to the governor's office to clean up a good old boys, politics as usual, crony capitalism problem that we had in an oil-rich, oil-dependent state where some of the players in the industry had forgotten Ethics 101. Guys ended up going to jail after busting up some corruption there, and just independent, average Alaskans sent me to the governor's office knowing that I was willing to jump into that hot water and stir it up and solve some of the problems for them. They had seen a track record after I had served as the president of our Conference of Mayors and then as the commissioner of our Oil and Gas Commission up there, and had a track record of taking on corruption in my own party that allowed them, the people, to be able to trust a new leader, albeit kind of rogue, as was mentioned, a young, at the time, young leader. And they knew that with a team that I could bring with me, good people surrounding me, that we would take on a compromised political class and we would win for the people. Well, I found very quickly that necessary, sudden, and relentless reform doesn't always sit well with those who are entrenched in the permanent political class and the power brokers, and they'll fight you every step of the way, and quite often they'll get the media on your side, and that's a, kind of a double barrel aimed right at you with those power brokers and the media up against you. But when you serve an informed public, again, when you give them the information that they deserve, that they need, then you can fight back and you can win for the people. Ronald Reagan understood that. This is why we followed Ronald Reagan. This is why he remains such a popular president, and we miss Ronald Reagan. He understood that real leadership requires that all-in commitment to tackle problems. He understood it took the time and the effort needed to inform a deserving public. Reagan educated us about the wisdom of his economic policies and about the posture that he had towards the Soviet Union. It wasn't nebulous. We didn't have to guess where he was going. But remember Reagan used to say when it came to our enemies, he used to say quite simply, we win, they lose. That's what we need today. We need kind of that simple, certainly common sense, but committed to victory, not only talk, but action coming from the top. And that's why we were behind Ronald Reagan, and when we were behind then the Democrat Party, they had to come along. And that's why progress was made under Reagan. Today, the American people, in too many instances, they haven't been truly informed about so many challenges facing America. Monumental things, like I mentioned, our dangerous out-of-control debt, and perception often becomes reality. And the administration and the permanent political class in D.C. today, what the perception is that they're giving us is that they just can't be bothered with these monumental problems. So they are kicking the can down the road and racking up those trillion-dollar deficits and ignoring a lot of scandal, a lot of other things that are not right in this country. They're thinking that we're not paying enough attention to affect the change that's needed and that is coming up. And this is unfair, profoundly unfair to the American people, especially the young people. Throughout our history, we've shown that we are strong enough, we are capable, we are wise enough, the people, to do the right thing when we are properly informed. And that is a leader's job, is to provide that. We can discern, we can judge well, and we can make tough choices when we're not spun by the media and we're not spun by politicians. We, the people, can do the right thing when our leaders will level with us, and that is what we must demand. As a governor, having that support of an informed public allowed for successful reform. And I gained that by putting in the efforts. You know, we had the town hall meetings. We had so much conversation with the people to let them know what our plans were, what the actions were being taken in order to clean up corruption and develop our natural resources and do all those things that a state in our position had opportunity to do. We put in the time to give that information and be transparent, and then that brought everybody to the table, and that allowed major legislation to reach consensus and to be passed. And we need that today to fix problems, and not many want to talk about a lot of those problems, as I mentioned, like say entitlement reform. Did you know our Social Security system, it's set to go broke in 10 years? A lot of people don't know that, but that's the path that we're on. Now, Washington, D.C. knows that, but they're ignoring it. You would think, okay, if they know that that's a crisis coming on, and Democrats and Republicans, no Democrat, no Republican in office wants to see that. You think, well, why can't they get together today then and fix it? History shows it's been done before. We go back again to Ronald Reagan. We know it can be done. In '83, our conservative President Reagan, he sat down with our liberal Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, and they carved out a plan to save Social Security. And the two were so opposed on so many issues, but they put it aside to reach a common goal for the common good, and that is what leadership is all about. Again, that is what made Reagan such a powerful, such a good leader. No reason that we can't do that today. Republicans and Democrats, again, for instance, on Social Security, they agree on about 70% of what the solution should be to save the program. They just need to take their politics out of it and do the right thing. Too many DC insiders, though, they actually like playing politics. They like playing politics specifically with this issue, so they can snipe at each other during election time and scare senior citizens, our honored senior citizens, so that they can get their vote. Again, rather kicking it down the road and pointing fingers until the program fails, well, that's gamesmanship. That's not leadership. And it's why so many have that distrust and this disdain for DC politics and the media that covers it. So it only changes if we the people demand it. Again, we get what we tolerate. When enough of us rise up, that positive change will happen. History proves it. Another example, look at the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability, but comes through continuous struggle." It takes work. And so we must, he says, straighten our backs and work for our freedom. A man can't ride you unless your back is bent. So now we all must straighten up, straighten our spines, stiffen them, and fight for America's freedom. John Ben Shepherd, again, namesake to this institution, said, "Our element is slumped over citizenship, and the only cure for it is better citizen posture and a straightening of the spine." You can remember that easily by remembering what your mom was always nagging you about. Stand up straight, sit up straight. Yeah. We need to do that literally and figuratively. Because friends, we the people need to lead so that our leaders will follow. It's our responsibility as citizens. And it is with a still spine. And it's with moral courage and integrity that is so needed. And you must, with determination, to work harder than you ever imagined. Apply that if you want to affect the change in our nation. And we do need to sacrifice for a better tomorrow, just as our grandparents did. They passed on to us a country stronger and more prosperous than ever before because they worked hard, they made those sacrifices. That is what we need to teach, that work ethic, to the young people in America today. That way we invigorate that old can-do spirit that built this country. And I know that that's here in Texas. You guys are known for your independent, industrious spirit where it's like, you're not going to let Washington, D.C. tell you what to do. You know the right thing to do. You know how to responsibly, safely develop God-given resources that are put here on earth for man's responsible use. You're going to do, as Texans, what you know needs to be done. Well, Texas, you need to spread that word, spread that spirit across our nation, because the rest of the nation can use what it is that you have here in the spirit of Texas. That's how we invigorate the old can-do spirit all across the nation. So with too much defeatism that we hear and feel and that foot dragging coming out of D.C., well, it's ironic that the candidate who got elected shouting, "Yes, we can," has become the "No, we can't" president. It's time we told him and everyone else in D.C., yes, we can. Yes, we can secure our borders and have real middle-class job growth. And yes, we can balance our budget. And we can replace Obamacare with free market, patient-centered, sensible reform. Yes, we can develop our natural resources and with Texas in the lead, we can quit bowing to foreign countries as we ask them to produce energy for us. No, it's all about drill, baby, drill. That works. Infrastructure, a pipeline running through our land, that's basic infrastructure, the keystone. There's no reason, there's no environmental reason, it's a political reason that we're not allowing friendly energy to flow through our lands for our good use ultimately. And yes, we can demand adherence to our Constitution where every one of our rights is protected. We can proudly bear arms. And we can... You know, proudly clinging to your guns, God, and your Constitution. It's good to be among friends. And we can build a culture of life that respects innocent, sacred new life. And I'm talking about children unborn, yet to be born. I'm talking about a culture of life that respects the purpose and the potential of every innocent life. And yes, we can reclaim American leadership in a world torn apart by evil, terrorists, and tyrants. The right change starts here. It starts with you, especially the young people here. They are the leaders that they've been waiting for. They need to stand up. They need to lead. And make your voices heard, young people. Fight for your freedom. Freedom isn't free. That's why we take the time to thank our vets for the sacrifices that they have made. Do our young people understand that? Do our young people understand that if we continue to allow that erosion of America's foundation, believing in peace through strength, and that is through our military might, if they're not taught that, if they don't see that, if they don't understand that patriotism is a good thing, that it's a proud thing, screw the political correctness. All that stuff that we're hearing coming out of Washington and the media. And the perfect example of that has been your own, Chris Kyle. And what we have seen coming from those yahoos in Hollywood who think that they know what a true American hero is. They think of heroes as somebody who's up on a stage or in front of a camera who's pretending to be someone else as an actor. Oh, that's a true American hero. No, a true American hero is one who is willing to put it all on the line, and that's Chris Kyle. You should be proud as Texans to call him your own. I'm very happy for the success of his story getting out there, and for his wife and for his children and for Americans rising up and showing through the marketplace that we support our military that way, and we will not pay attention again to those yahoos in Hollywood who don't get it. The right change does start with you, and again, here in Texas, where everything is big and bold, you got to be bold, and you got to put it all on the line every day. Men and women, and others will follow. Don't forget that you were born the heirs of freedom, but it's not free. Hear the great Texan again, Mr. Shepherd. He said, to be born free is an accident, to live free is a responsibility, but to die free is an obligation. Let's teach that to our children, to our grandchildren, and let's live it ourselves. And again, Texas, you're in the position to lead. So God bless Texas, and God bless the United